So this is the last section that we'll be talking about trigonometry. Trigonometry of right triangles. We learned about SOHCAHTOA yesterday, where if we're taking the sine of an angle, we use what over what?
Opposite over hypotenuse.
And if we're using cosine of an angle, it's what?
Adjacent.
And tangent of an angle is what?
Opposite over adjacent.
Right, so remember our little friend, SOHCAHTOA. And make sure you can spell it correctly, otherwise it will not help you. So tomorrow on quiz day, all of that will be erased from the board. So make sure you memorize what sine is, what cosine is, what tangent is. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. All right? Well, what we have not done yet is found angle measures using trigonometry. We have found side measures, but we have not found angle measures. All right. To find an angle measure, you're going to use sine, cosine, and tangent, but we're going to use the inverse functions of them. Okay? Well, an inverse of a ratio is the reciprocal of it. It's going to be the denominator over the numerator. So where sine is opposite over hypotenuse, it would be hypotenuse over opposite. Okay? That gets confusing. So luckily there is an inverse button with the trig properties on your calculator. Okay? So we can do the inverse in the calculator without getting confused on flipping everything. So if I want to find the measure of angle A, here of this triangle, here is angle A down there. Okay? Now, did they give me the hypotenuse of that triangle? No. What did they give me in reference to angle A? The opposite and the adjacent. Now, which trig ratio uses opposite and adjacent? Tangent. So we're going to say tangent of angle A equals its opposite over adjacent. So tangent of angle A, what is the length of this leg that's opposite from angle A? 15 over 20. And what is 15 over 20 as a decimal?
0.75.
So tangent of angle A is 0.75. That's what the tangent equals. But if we want to find what angle A equals, that's what we're trying to find, is the angle measure in our calculator. We're going to turn it on, number one. Make sure you're in degree mode. Mine's too high, I'm sorry. Trying to show everything. Where it says tangent, do you see in another color above it, it says tangent to the negative 1 power?
Yeah.
That means inverse tangent. So you're going to use the inverse function anytime you want to find an angle measure. So you're going to hit second tangent. Second puts the inverse with it. And then you're going to do your decimal, 0.75. Close your parentheses and hit enter. And that's your degree measure. And we can round that to 1 decimal place, 36.9 degrees. So A is approximately 36.9 degrees. Now make sure if you're finding angle measures, you put the degree symbol with it. Okay? So if you're looking for angle measures, you use inverse tangent. If you're looking for sides of the triangle, you just use tangent. If you're using angle measures, you do inverse of whatever trig function it is. Okay? And notice how they didn't tell me to use tangent. I had to figure out I had opposite and adjacent, so that's how I know I use tangent. Okay? All right, let's do some more. Oh, let's find the measure of angle C. Same triangle. So angle C I'm going to highlight in blue. So what two things do I have in regards to angle C? Do I have a hypotenuse? So I'm not going to use sine, not going to use cosine, right? I'm using tangent again. However, are my opposite and adjacent going to be the same? No, they're going to swap because now I'm in regards to angle C. Y'all with me? So now my opposite is 20 and 15 is my adjacent. Does that make sense? Because it all is relative to whatever angle you're going off of. So, tangent of angle C is going to be its opposite, which is 20, over its adjacent, which is 15. I don't know why I marked out the number. Sorry. I meant to mark out the opposite. So 20 over 15. And what is 20 over 15 as a decimal? 1 1/3. Well, how about, since we're going to round that, let's just type that in the calculator then. You can do it like that without getting the decimal first. So you hit inverse tangent, so make sure it has the -1, and then you can hit 20 over 15. Just put the whole fraction in there so that way there's less rounding. Does that make sense? So tan inverse 20 over 15, close your parentheses and hit enter. And that's about 53.1 degrees. You can. So that's exactly how I'm going to check it. That's how I'm going to check it. Okay? We know that C and A have to add together to make 90 so that all three make 180. Correct? Correct? If I add these two, do I get 90? Yes, I do. Now, we're rounding, so they might be off by like a decimal point because of rounding, but it should be really close to 90. But these are exactly 90 degrees. Y'all with me? Y'all with me? So that was another way I could find it is 180 or just 90 minus 36.9. Do we have a problem? Huh? Yes. I should say C equals. So I should say tangent inverse of 20 over 15 which equals C. That make more sense? Sorry. That's what happens when I skip a step. My work don't make sense. It happens to y'all too. When y'all skip steps, it don't make sense to me either, but I figure it out. All right, this is just some calculator punching, and you will have some of these on your quiz tomorrow that's just calculator punching. If they tell you the sign of something is this decimal, then how do you find the angle measure? You do inverse. So you do inverse sine this decimal in your calculator. Yes. Yeah, because we rounded it. I thought I put a little squiggle here somewhere. Technically, we should do squiggles. All right, so if they tell you sine of A equals a decimal, you just type to find the measure of angle A, you just do second sine that decimal, close parentheses, and you're going to round your angle measure. So that's approximately what? 60.5 degrees. So the measure of angle A is approximately 60.5 degrees. Y'all see how we did that? We just hit in second sine, 0.87. So you do the inverse function to find angle measures. Inverse to find angle measures. Memorize that because tomorrow I'm not going to tell you that on your quiz. If you're finding angle measures, use the inverse. So y'all do 3 on your own. Find the measure of angle B for me for cosine B equals 0.15, and then I'll do it and see if we get the same thing. Bless you. All right, I'm going to do it. So what do you type in your calculator? Second cosine 0.15. And what'd you get for your angle measure? I am froze, aren't I? B is approximately, what did it say?
81.4 degrees.
Did everybody get that? Anybody not get that? All right, I had another you try, but you tried early, so I'm going to skip it. All right, now we get to the fun part of the lesson. Solving a right triangle. Write that down that is highlighted in yellow, please, at the top of your screen. And then please draw the triangle. All right, so what we have built up to and all these things that we have done with trigonometry is to solve a right triangle. Now, when you solve a right triangle, that means that you know all of the leg and side lengths and all of the angle measures. So you got how many legs or sides do you have in a triangle? 3. How many angle measures do you have in a triangle? 3. And one of them's given to us because it's a 90-degree angle if it's a right triangle, correct? All right. So solving a right triangle means you know all 3 sides and all 3 angle measures. Okay? So look at this triangle. Is there something that I can find pretty quickly?
Yes.
I can find the measure of angle B, right? Why can I find the measure of angle B so quickly? I know one angle measures 42 degrees, and I know together these two have to equal 90, so that all 3 of them can equal 180, correct? So what is missing? So angle B is 48 degrees. So write that down somewhere. Anytime you find something, mark it, and then label it on your picture. Oops, my notes are coming up. All right, so there's one of my things. So now I've got 2 sides I have to find. Y'all agree? I know all my angles. I need to know 2 sides. So what you want to do is pick one of them to work off of. All right? Now, do y'all want to find this short leg or do y'all want to find the hypotenuse? Short legs. Okay, so give it a variable. Okay? Now, you could use either angle A or angle B, but sometimes I miss subtract, so I'm going to use the one they gave me just to be sure. Okay, because on a quiz, we get a little nervous sometimes, so we miss subtract something, and it's better to get fewer things wrong, right, on a multi-part problem. So I'm going to use that 42 degree because they gave me that, so I know that one's not wrong. And that variable length is what to that angle? Opposite. And the only measure they gave me was segment AC is 70 feet, right? What is that leg's relationship to angle A? Adjacent. So if I have opposite and adjacent that I'm working with, what am I going to use? Tangent. Y'all with me? Tangent, because I have opposite and adjacent. I don't have any hypotenuses, so I can't use sine or cosine. Y'all with me? So I'm going to say the tangent of 42 degrees equals opposite over adjacent. So I'm going to say x over 70. So how am I going to get x by itself? Multiply by 70 on both sides. Those cancel. And I can type that straight in my calculator. 70 times 70 times tangent of 42. Do not use inverse because you know the angle measure. Okay? So what is approximately the length of that leg?
63.03 feet.
Yeah, it says 2. How the nearest tenth?
So 63.
0.0. Yeah. So 63.0 feet is the length of segment CD. And you can draw that in your picture if you would like to. 63 feet. And it makes sense because it should be the shorter leg because the 42-degree angle is smaller than the 48 angle. So that means it should be smaller than 70. Does that make sense? Shortest sides are across from the smallest angle. Now what's left for me to find? Hypotenuse. So we could use the trig function to find the hypotenuse. Or what's another way I could find the hypotenuse? Pythagorean theorem. Okay, if I know two sides, I can find the third side by Pythagorean theorem. If I know two angles, I can find the third one by subtracting from 180. If I know two sides, I can find the third one from Pythagorean theorem. So that's the easier way, in my opinion. So I will say 70 squared plus 63 squared equals c squared, since I'm looking for the hypotenuse. So what is 70 squared? 4,900. Plus what's 63 squared? 3,969 equals c squared. And then I add those.
8,869
Equals c squared. So how do I get just c? Square root. So square root of that in my calculator. And we can round that to approximately 94.2. Did y'all get that? 94.2 is approximately c. Do I put a degree sign with that? No, it was the length of a side. Yeah, I do need to put feet with it. So now do I know all three angle measures?
Yes.
Do I know all three lengths of the sides? You have solved the triangle. So you have solved it when you know all three angles and all three sides. Okay. No. Here's another one. Draw this one for me. I'm going to move this out of my way. What'd they give me here? Two sides, particularly the two legs, right? So what I would probably do is go ahead and find that third side, right? The third side is the what of the triangle? The hypotenuse. So how do we think we're going to find the hypotenuse? Pythagorean theorem. So I'll say 5 squared plus 12 squared equals c squared. What is 5 squared? Plus equals c squared. What's 25 plus 144? That's nice because it's a perfect square, isn't it? The square root of 169 is 13. So there is my hypotenuse. And now we've got to find an angle. All right, now this is where your work can look different than my work, can look different than everybody else's work. It just depends on which angle y'all choose. And then which trig ratio you choose, because we know all three sides, so we can actually use any of the three trig ratios. Okay? So y'all tell me, which angle do you like better, G or E? Y'all can't agree. I heard more G's, sorry. And in case I messed up on that, you can use tangent to do opposite adjacent. I don't think I messed up because that came out to be too neat. If I want to use cosine, I would use 12 and 13. If I wanted to use sine, I would use 5 and 13. Does anybody have a preference on sine, cosine, and tangent? Tangent, okay. A tangent is opposite over adjacent. So tangent of angle G, Tang. That was a drink we drank in the 80s and 90s. Y'all ever heard of Tang? Do they still have that? It's like in a little tub of stuff. Like you get the lemonade and you mix it in water. It's like Kool-Aid. It's really good. All right. So tangent is going to be its opposite over its adjacent. So what's the length of the measure that's opposite from angle G? 5. And what's the one adjacent to angle G that's not the hypotenuse? 12. Now we're looking for the angle measure, right? So what do we have to push to look for the angle measure? Inverse tangent. Okay? So I'm just going to type that straight in my calculator after I turn it on. I'm going to hit second tangent because I'm looking for angle measure, so I need to use the inverse, and then 5 over 12. Close parentheses. Y'all getting about 22.6 degree angle? So measure of angle G is approximately 22.6 degrees. So you use the inverse trig function to find the angle measures. So write it in there. This one's 22.6 degrees. How's the easiest way to find the third one? Subtract it from 90. You could add it with 90 and subtract from 180, or you know that these two have to make 90 and you can just subtract from 90. So the measure of angle E is going to be 90 minus 22.6 degrees, which is what? 67.4 degrees. Technically, it should say approximately since I rounded that first one. So do I know all three sides and all three angles? Yes. Is that good? Is this too bad? Now, the thing that gets people is you can do it multiple ways, right? That's what confuses some people is you might be doing something and you get help from your neighbor and they're doing it a totally different way and you get confused. So you can do it whatever way you want to and just your work just won't look like somebody else's, and that's fine. This is going to be our last one we do in class before I turn y'all loose on some practice. Because that's how we get good at it. We practice it, right? That's how we do it. We practice. So I have a 25-degree angle measure and a hypotenuse with a length of 25 also. Okay, that's all I got. So what do y'all want to find first? Measure of angle B. That's pretty simple, right? That way I'll know all three angle measures. So how do we get the measure of angle B? 90 degrees minus 25 degrees. So the measure of angle B is how many degrees? 65 degrees. Very good. So now I've just got to find two sides. Which part of that triangle did they give me? A leg or a hypotenuse? Hypotenuse. All right, so I'm probably going to use cosine or sine then, right? Do y'all want to find the length of AB or AC? Sure. Okay. So I'm going to use the angle they gave me just in case I made a subtracting mistake. I'll use angle C. So is the X opposite adjacent or what? It's touching angle C, so it's adjacent. So what do you think we're going to use? Sine, cosine, or tangent? Cosine. So cosine of 25 degrees is going to be adjacent over hypotenuse, so X over 25. Okay with that? So how do we get X by itself? You multiply by 25 on both sides. And then you can type that straight in your calculator. 25 times the cosine of 25. Are we going to use the inverse? No, because we already know the angle measures. You only use inverse if you're looking for an angle measure. So 25 times the cosine of 25. And you don't even have to put that times key in there. I'll just do it out of habit. And we're getting approximately what? So x is approximately 22.7. And they didn't give us any units, did they? No. So, all I need to find now, yes, is the length of AB over there. Let's call it variable y if you want to. Whatever variable you like. So how do I find that? Yes, and I'm looking for a leg, right? So leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared. So 22.7 squared. Okay, write it all out because we've already rounded, right? So we want to keep our stuff as accurate as possible because we know we're rounding. And 25 squared is what? Okay, and then we're going to subtract the 515.29 on both sides. $109.71. That's y squared. So how do I get just y? Square root. Again, try not to round to the very end. So y is approximately what? 10.5. Now let's make sure that answer makes sense. That's the shortest leg, right? Is that across from the smallest angle? And is our 22.7 less than our hypotenuse? Yes. So you can always double check to make sure your angles and sides make sense. All right. So any questions on how we solve a triangle? What does it mean to solve a right triangle? Right. You know all three angle measures and all three side measures. Very good. That is the end of 7.7. Get ready for a quiz tomorrow. See you later, math nerds.